Your life begins at the bottom. You are a recruit, but in the submarine community, you are a nub. Nub stands for non-useful body. That is your official designation. Not a rank, not a role, a designation that tells everyone on board exactly where you stand, which is nowhere. You earned your place here through a screening process more invasive than anything the Army runs. A psychological evaluation that took 3 days and asked questions about your childhood you didn't remember. A background investigation that interviewed people from your past you'd forgotten existed. A physical that examined every millimeter of your body for conditions that disqualify you from serving inside a pressure vessel. The Navy needs to know you won't break. They screen aggressively because the cost of being wrong is not a paperwork problem. The qualification process takes 6 months to a year depending on your rate. You spend 18 hours a day studying technical manuals that cover every valve, every pipe, every circuit, every emergency procedure on this vessel. You will draw the ship's systems from memory. You will be stopped in passageways by senior enlisted sailors who point at a pipe and ask you what it does and where it leads and what happens if it fails. If you don't know, you go back and you study until you do. Nobody here cares about your prior service. Nobody cares about your college degree. What they care about is whether you can find the emergency hydraulic bypass for the ballast system in the dark while an alarm is screaming, while someone is telling you something is on fire. You sleep in a coffin locker. It is approximately the size of a coffin. Your bunk folds down from the wall. Above and below you, inches away, are other men in identical spaces. You eat in a galley the size of a large closet in 3 shifts because the room cannot hold the whole crew at once. You learn to move through passageways sideways. You learn to sleep through sounds that would wake a civilian from a dead rest. The hum of the reactor, the groan of the hull adjusting to pressure changes, the sonar ping that comes every few minutes like a metronome counting down something you don't want to count. You are not a sailor yet. You are a candidate for becoming a sailor. The dolphins, the silver pin worn on the chest of every qualified submariner, represent the moment that changes. You earn them or you don't. The ones who don't go back to the surface fleet, which means you fail. You have your dolphins now, which means you are no longer nothing. You are something specific. You are the ears. You sit in a darkened room the size of a large closet with headphones over your ears and a waterfall display in front of you, showing the acoustic signature of everything within range. Everything means everything. The biological noise of a humpback whale singing 6 miles away. The distant machinery sound of a surface ship you identified 40 minutes ago and have been tracking since. The particular frequency signature of a fast attack submarine that sounds like a problem. Your job is to know the difference. The ocean has a noise floor. Every vessel, every creature, every geological formation contributes to it. You learn to read that floor the way a tracker reads mud. You know the tonal signature of every Soviet-era and Russian submarine class in the water. You know the blade rate of specific propeller configurations. You know how a nuclear reactor's coolant pumps sound at different speeds. And you know which country's reactors sound which way. And you know when something you're hearing does not match anything in the library, and that means it's either new or it's something someone doesn't want you to know about. Your problem is the next sound, and the one after that, and the interpretation of everything happening in the water around a vessel that cannot afford to be surprised. The hours here are long, and the room never gets any bigger, and the headphones never come off for more than a few minutes at a stretch. You develop the particular kind of patience that comes from doing one thing with complete attention for years. Not calm exactly, vigilance that has learned to look like calm. You are a lieutenant now. You manage the vertical launch system. The tubes. There are 24 of them on a Ohio-class SSBN. Each tube contains a Trident II D5 ballistic missile. Each missile carries multiple independently targetable warheads. The yield of a single warhead is multiple times the yield of the weapon dropped on Hiroshima. You know the numbers. You have known the numbers since your first week in this job. You stopped finding them surprising after the second month. That is either a sign of maturity or a sign of something else, and you have learned not to examine it too closely. You rehearse the launch sequence. Not daily, more often than that. The sequence is precise and procedurally rigid for reasons that are obvious. Two-man concept. No single person can complete it alone. The physical and electronic safeguards are layered in ways designed by people who spent decades thinking about every possible failure mode, including the human ones. You are one of the humans they designed the system around. The weight of the job does not come from the procedures. The procedures are clean, straightforward. They work the way a well-maintained machine works. The weight comes from knowing what the procedures are for and holding that knowledge steady inside you during a 6-month deployment while your wife thinks you work in government research and your daughter turned 7 while you were somewhere in the North Atlantic and you missed it. A phone call through a satellite relay, delayed and static-filled, lasting 9 minutes because communications windows are limited and the security requirements are what they are. You tell her you love her. She says she knows. You hear something in her voice that tells you she is saying this carefully. You have heard it before. You recognize it the way you recognize an acoustic signature, by its shape and what it means. You file it away. You get back to work. The isolation at this level is a known cost. You accepted it before you took the billet. Most people at this stage in this community have accepted it. You are the XO, which means you are the most important person on this vessel that no one ever talks about. The commanding officer commands. The XO runs the machinery of everything else, the administration, the training, the morale, the quiet assessment of 140 men living in an environment specifically designed to identify the edges of human psychological tolerance. You are the one who notices when an enlisted sailor has been cleaning the same equipment for 4 hours, when a petty officer who normally talks constantly has gone quiet for 3 days, when someone's hands are slightly less steady than they were at the beginning of the patrol. You have a set of tools for what you observe: counseling, reassignment to lighter duties, confidential conversations in your stateroom that are technically confidential, but in a boat this size, nothing is entirely confidential because sound travels through steel in ways that remind everyone that privacy here is a polite collective fiction. You manage the fiction carefully. It matters. What you cannot do is be wrong about someone and keep them on station. The consequences of keeping someone on station who should not be on station exist on a spectrum that reaches places you cannot allow yourself to think about for long. The XO is the institutional memory of the crew. When the CO changes, you remain. You know where the operational records are, what the precedents were, which corners were cut on the last deployment and why, which systems have quirks that aren't in the manual. You are the continuity. The boat's accumulated knowledge lives partially in the manuals and partially in you. At this level, the job is less about the ocean and more about the humans inside the vessel. You are a systems manager for a system whose components are people under sustained stress. You become very good at reading people. You become very good at not showing what you're reading. Both skills are necessary. Neither one is comfortable to carry home on the rare weeks you spend there. Your CO is somebody you respect completely and disagree with regularly. That tension is productive. It is supposed to be productive. The Navy designed the relationship that way deliberately. A CO who agrees with his XO about everything is a CO who has stopped being challenged, and a CO who stops being challenged in this environment is a CO who will eventually be wrong about something at a cost the Navy cannot absorb. You challenge him. He pushes back. The boat is safer for it. That is the closest thing to partnership available down here. You take it. You are the CO now. The control room is yours. The con is yours. The chart with all the red pins, the communications equipment, the sealed orders in the safe, the key that lives on a chain around your neck when certain conditions exist, all of it answers to you and only to you. If you give an order in this control room, it will be executed. If your judgment is wrong, there is no senior officer down here to override it. You are the senior officer. You are the final word on everything that happens inside this hull while you were at sea. And you were at sea for 6 months at a stretch. And during those 6 months, the line between your judgment and the boat's survival is not a metaphor. Most days, this is fine. Most days are navigation, watch standing, training evolutions, maintenance, the steady rhythm of a vessel conducting a deterrent patrol. Most days the weight of the authority is background noise. You have been living with it long enough that you carry it without thinking about it, the way you carry the key. Every training evolution you have run in the past 6 months has prepared you and your crew to execute exactly what the procedures require in exactly this sequence. What nobody trains you for is the 3 seconds before you begin. The 3 seconds when it is just you and the message and the knowledge of what follows if the message is real and what follows if it is a test, and the understanding that your entire career, your entire training, everything this institution has done to transform you from whoever you were before into whoever you are now has been in preparation for exactly this moment of exactly this kind of silence. You retire eventually, 26 years in. The Navy holds a ceremony. There are handshakes, a shadow box with your dolphins and your ribbons and your command pin. Your family stands in a row and smiles for photographs. You drive home. You sit in the driveway for longer than you intend to. The car engine ticks as it cools. Inside the house there is noise, ordinary noise. Television and a dog and your daughter asking about dinner. The noise of people who have not spent the last 3 decades living inside pressurized steel in water so deep the sun cannot reach it. The key is still on the chain. You don't wear it anymore, but you haven't put it away yet either. You're not sure what you're waiting for. Maybe for someone to tell you that the patrol is over. Nobody does. Nobody ever will. The patrol is the kind of thing that ends on paper and continues everywhere else. Somewhere in Norfolk right now, a 24-year-old with a stack of technical manuals and a coffin locker and a sleeping spot 6 inches from a torpedo is reading about valve positions he needs to have memorized by morning. He hasn't earned his dolphins yet. He doesn't know about the 3 seconds or the chain or the driveway. He knows the qualification date. He knows where to show up. He'll show up. They always do.